Welcome to the Belated Tech Channel's 92nd edition and second year of the Space and Tech Rewind. We are reviewing the milestones that occurred on each day of the week of March 7th to March 13th in space exploration, science, and technology. March 7th, 1933, the game Monopoly was created and trademarked by Charles Darrow in Atlantic City on this date. Monopoly wasn't by any stretch the first real estate game. The first, patented in 1904, was called the Landlord's Game and was invented by Lizzie McGee of Virginia. Her version had players renting properties, paying utilities, and avoiding jail as they moved across the board. It is commonly thought that Darrow was influenced by McGee's version, but he made numerous innovations for his game, which had a circular cloth board representing Atlantic City. He color-coded the properties and deeds for them, allowing them to be bought, not just rented. The playing pieces were modeled on items from around his house. Parker Brothers bought both the rights to Darrow's game and McGee's game in 1935. When the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issued a patent for Monopoly to Darrow, it was assigned to Parker Brothers. Monopoly became one of Parker Brothers' most popular games, and it was that property, among a few others, that led a U.S. competitor, Hasbro, to purchase Parker Brothers in 1970 and gain control of the Monopoly patents and trademarks. In the 21st century, Hasbro licenses Monopoly in over 100 countries using about 36 different languages, and also offers a significant number of variants of the board game, as well as electronic and software versions. March 8th, 1983. IBM introduced the IBM Personal Computer XT on this date, which stood for Extended Technology. For a price of $4,995, it featured an Intel 8088 processor, a 10MB hard drive, 8 expansion slots, a serial port, 128 kilobytes of RAM, 40 kilobyte ROM, a keyboard, and one double-sided 360 kilobyte floppy drive. The XT replaced the PC, which only had floppy drives, 16 kilobytes of RAM, and no hard drive. In many ways, the IBM PC and XT were inferior to the TRS-80 Model 2 and Apple II, both of which had been introduced years earlier, and the Commodore 64 and TI-99, which were introduced around the same time as the PC and the XT. But the PC and XT benefited from IBM's marketing clout and their unusual open architecture, which allowed virtually anyone to build hardware and software for the platforms. The IBM PC architecture and Apple's Apple II and Macintosh would gain over 90% of the personal computer market by 1990. The two architectures' dominance would not be challenged until Google released the Android operating system in 2008, which would diminish the importance of hardware architecture and cement the emerging dominance of handheld devices. March 9th, 1962. Marine Corps aviator John Glenn became the third person to be presented with astronaut wings on this date. He was so honored due to his flight with the Mercury Atlas 6 mission on the Friendship 7 capsule. Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth and the fifth human in space. Variations of the badge are awarded to both U.S. military personnel and civilians who reach more than 50 miles in altitude above the Earth. Glenn retired from the Marine Corps and NASA 2 years later to run for a U.S. Senate seat from Ohio. He was defeated in that election and again in 1970, but he prevailed in 1974 and held the seat for 25 years. Glenn also returned to space in 1998 on the Shuttle Discovery's STS-95 mission at age 77, still the record for an astronaut or cosmonaut. Glenn, always a prime physical specimen, retained his pilot's license until age 90, although thereafter his decline was precipitous. He died in 2016 at age 95. Most have forgotten that Glenn was a Democratic candidate for the U.S. president in 1984, bowing out to the eventual primary winner, Walter Mondale. Mondale, 56, was viewed to be more relevant than the 63-year-old Glenn, whose fame had come 20 years before. Nevertheless, Mondale lost badly to Ronald Reagan, winning only Minnesota and D.C. Glenn continued as a U.S. Senator, never to return to presidential politics again. Enjoying our content? We issue new videos every week, so be sure to subscribe so you stay current. Subscribing is free, and we encourage you to browse our 350-plus video library, where you can find more milestone installments for every day of the year, as well as tech documentary segments, current events in space exploration, science and technology, gameplay recordings, reviews of tools and equipment, and reviews of small electronics and appliances. Each video is tagged with an alphanumeric identifier in the title, so searches for particular segments are quick and easy. March 10, 1876, Alexander Graham Bell made what was, in effect, the first telephone call on this date. His assistant, Thomas Watson, located in an adjoining room in Boston, heard Bell's voice over the experimental device say to him, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you." That same day, an ebullient Bell wrote his father of his great success and speculated that, quote, "The day is coming when telegraph wires will be laid onto houses just like water and gas, and friends will converse with each other without leaving home." Bell had received the first telephone patent 3 days before. Later that year, Bell succeeded in making a phone call over outdoor lines. The first handheld cellular phone call was made on April 3, 1973, by Motorola engineer Martin Cooper from 6th Avenue, New York, while walking between 53rd and 54th Streets. Cooper hoisted the 2.5-pound prototype to his ear and called a rival, Joel Engel of Bell Laboratories at AT&T, to declare that his Motorola team had devised a functional portable phone. Motorola would labor for another 10 years to bring the phone to commercial markets. March 11, 1986, the National Football League adopted a limited instant replay system on this date. The system proved unpopular and was eventually dropped after the 1991 season. But by 1999, attitudes about instant replay had changed, precipitated by a game late in the 1998 season. The Seattle Seahawks were leading the New York Jets with time running out, and the Jets facing a 4th and goal situation, when quarterback Vinny Testaverde evaded a pass rush and ran towards the end zone before diving near the goal line. The referee near the play called it a touchdown, giving the Jets a critical 32-31 win. However, replays showed very clearly that while Testaverde's helmet had crossed the goal line, the football never came close to breaking the plane of the goal line as required by the rules. If Seattle had won this game, and the rest of their schedule played out as it ended up doing, they would have earned a wildcard spot, but instead they missed the playoffs, and coach Dennis Erickson and his entire staff were fired after the season. Owners could no longer claim that the inability to address such a massive error was tenable, and brought back replay for the 1999 season. Replay has remained a part of the NFL ever since. Have you agreed with our choices, or do you think there are other events in space and tech history that were better? Go ahead and share with us by dropping a comment below. If you have suggestions for other space and tech milestones, let us know. We'll credit milestones we pick for future videos to those viewers that post them. And don't forget to click the bell notification icon so you don't miss upcoming videos. March 12, 1957. Test pilot and aerospace project engineer Colonel Jack Ridley was killed on this date when the C-47 transport plane he was riding in crashed into a mountainside near Tokyo. He was the technical lead for the F-92, the F-84, and the B-52 jet aircraft, and the X-1 through X-5 rocket planes from 1946 to 1956. He himself was the test pilot for 6 X-1 flights between 1949 and 1954. Ridley had just been elevated to a role in NATO's Aerospace Research and Development Agency before the crash. It was of tragic irony that it was a routine cargo flight that killed him after years of death-defying flights in experimental propeller, jet, and rocket aircraft. He was later portrayed in the 1983 film The Right Stuff about the first U.S. aerospace pilots and astronauts. In 1996, Ridley was inducted into the Aerospace Walk of Honor in Lancaster, California, and was inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio in 2004. March 13, 1781, English astronomer William Herschel discovered Uranus in the night sky on this date. He initially thought it was a comet. It was the first planet to be discovered with the aid of a telescope. By 1787, he had also observed the Uranian satellites Titania and Oberon, which were later given these names by his son, John Herschel. Interestingly, Pluto was also discovered on the same day in 1930 by U.S. astronomer Clyde Tombaugh in the Lowell Observatory. Originally classified as the ninth planet, Pluto would be later downgraded to the status of dwarf planet after several similarly sized trans-Neptunian objects were discovered decades later. On March 2, 2022, OneWeb ordered its staff to leave Russia's Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan amid an impasse over the planned March 4th launch of its latest batch of satellites on a Soyuz rocket. OneWeb is based in the UK and is owned by the British government and an Indian telecom company. The company decided to leave the Russian-controlled Space Center after Roscosmos issued an ultimatum on the mission. Roscosmos Director General Dmitry Rogozin said the planned March 4th launch could only go ahead if OneWeb guarantees the satellites would not be used for military purposes, and the British government divests its stake in the company. The UK government declined. The Russian Federation invaded neighboring Ukraine in February and is facing worldwide economic sanctions, including that from the UK. Putin's government has responded by retaliating economically in those areas the country exports materials, other than natural gas and petroleum, and provides technical services. OneWeb had planned to use Soyuz vehicles to complete its broadband constellation in 2022. The company plans to market its bandwidth to legacy telecom companies, which differs from SpaceX's Starlink strategy of marketing directly to customers. OneWeb, which was to be SpaceX's first major competitor in the nascent low Earth orbit internet service provider industry, is facing significant delays while it turns to other launch vehicles and scrambles for scarce launch windows. OneWeb's satellites also happen to use Russian propulsion technology. They are equipped with Russian maneuvering engines, raising the specter of even more delays as the company is forced to re-engineer its equipment. We'll keep you posted. We hope you enjoyed this 92nd episode of Belated Tech Space and Tech Rewind. If so, click that like button. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, or just stay in touch by following us on our microblogging accounts, which are listed below: the community feed for this channel, our Instagram feed, and our Minds page. We announce all new videos and post some unique content on those outlets. And if you prefer an alternative video distribution source, consider visiting our channel on Rumble. Thanks for watching.
Where's Merlin? Where did it go?
Jenny's got it playing tic-tac-toe.
Now where's Merlin?
When last seen it was out with Dad playing blackjack 13.
Where's Merlin now?
It's not there, it's out with Billy playing Magic Square.
Merlin is a computer with personality. Plays 6 different games, talks with 20 sounds. 6 pen-light batteries not included.
Where's Merlin now? Better come clean.
In the kitchen with Mom playing Music Machine.
Merlin from Parker Brothers.